Tonight, Columbia's police chief is speaking out about officer shortages. I'll recap about what he had to say at tonight's Citizens Police Review Board.
And we're watching rain moving through central Missouri, even some heavier downpours when we could see some flakes out of the system coming up.
And how one Columbia resident is geared up for the Super Bowl game. This is KMU8 News at 10.
Coverage you can count on. KOMU8 News starts now.
Well, you're taking a live look over downtown Columbia where it's been rainy today. You can see the wet road conditions in the city. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Evie Allen. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Let's check in with Chief Meteorologist Matt Beckwith. Now, Matt, will we have to use our umbrellas again tomorrow?
I think there's the potential in the morning. Certainly not going to be an all-day thing, Evie. Just the morning hours. So maybe for us, if we sleep in, like I tend to at least, as the morning goes on, we might be in good enough shape with our hours. Looking at satellite and radar, we are looking at some moderate moisture, some downpours near Owensville, down towards Rolla, Marys County here, picking up on some heavier rain, even some decent-sized drops over Columbia. I can hear them hitting our roof. We've just kind of gotten into a lighter period now, but overall, still watching this rain that's going to continue to make its way in. Precipitation chances do start to die down after midnight for us, but areas north of I-70, particularly north of Highway 24, do have my eye. Let me take you through this. We are watching for some rain to continue through central Missouri. This heavier band then starts to push in with some cooler air, and I do think areas north of Highway 24 outside of our viewing area could actually see some slick spots develop tomorrow morning. I'll dive more into this coming up in just a few moments.
All right, thank you, Matt. Well, today, Columbia's Police Chief Jeff Jones expressed concern about an officer shortage to the Columbia Citizens Police Review Board. Now, it happened during the board's second training session of the year after Columbia City Council voted to disband the group last August. Now, KMU8's Kobe Zach was at that meeting. And Kobe, can you tell us what Chief Jones was most concerned about?
Yes, I'm at City Hall where Chief Jones said that CPD is already down a few dozen members, and on top of that, 20 to 30 additional members will be eligible to retire within the next year. Chief Jones also said that CPD was forced to increase shift times from 10 hours to 12 hours for efficiency. When referring to complaints about the police force, he said that everybody has bad days, and there is an even higher likelihood for mistakes when an officer is tired or stressed. One CPD spokesperson says the shortages are widespread.
Currently, we're experiencing 22 vacancies. Filling vacancies has been an ongoing situation in the Columbia Police Department. Obviously, whenever we have staffing shortages, that'll impact all levels of operations.
The Citizens Police Review Board still has yet to decide their next meeting date. In Columbia, I'm Colby Zach, KOMU8 News.
Well, today lawmakers met to discuss House Bill 301, which aims to curb violent crime rates across the state. State Representative Lane Roberts of Joplin wrote the bill, which adds a special prosecutor appointed to handle violent crimes. Right now, people who own a gun and have been convicted of felony can be charged with unlawful possession of a firearm. The bill would only apply for people who have been convicted of a, quote, violent felony. Now, one Missouri representative says this legislation could impact more than just the major cities.
It affects us economically as an entire region. So when we start to try to address violent crime in the city of St. Louis, guess what? Then we can attract businesses and economic investment back to our region so people can feel safe.
That was Representative Justin Sparks, and the bill now moves to fiscal review, where, if approved, will go onto the Senate floor. Well, a couple of Missouri lawmakers want to make the state responsible for cleaning up large roadkill. The proposed bill would require MoDOT to pick up and bury dead animals 3 feet deep. The Department of Conservation would have to pay for it. Now, MoDOT says it's down 900 employees over the past year and doesn't have the staff to make this a priority. Crews already remove items on the shoulders of highways when they have time, but one local driver says it's getting a little out of hand.
It's not only just a hazard, it's kind of an eyesore too. When it's disgusting, it stinks. I mean, sometimes I don't have a choice but to run over it a little bit, and I don't want that all over my truck and everything.
A Democrat has also sponsored an identical bill. They have a public hearing scheduled for tomorrow. Well, the Missouri House is once again discussing the legalization of sports betting. A committee met today about the bill, and KMU8's Nate Sanchez has details on how that hearing went. Nate.
Missouri lawmakers are parlaying their efforts to finally make sports wagering legal. The bill passed in the House last year by 115 votes, but ultimately fell short in the Senate. There was no shortage of support for the bill as representatives from gaming companies and almost all professional sports organizations in Missouri were in attendance. One supporter pointed to the revenues missed out on just last week in the Chiefs versus Bengals AFC Championship game.
The same day, that Sunday, in Kansas alone, there was 1.14 million bets placed in Kansas of 580,000 roughly people placing those bets.
Now that is just one small slice of potential revenue that supporters hope to put towards things like education and infrastructure. In the newsroom, Nate Sanchez, KOMU 8 News.
Thank you, Nate. Well, a pair of Hickman High graduates and Marching Mizzou alums will be part of bringing Missouri to Arizona this weekend for Super Bowl 57. KMU8 Sports Director Ben Arnett is here to explain how a couple of Cupies and Tigers are doing their part for the Chiefs. Ben?
Yes, Evie. Alex Valor and Matt Arnett started the Chiefs Rumble drum line back in 2009, and now they're getting ready to help bring the spirit of Arrowhead to the Super Bowl for a second time. And yes, full disclosure, Matt is my big brother. He has also led the Chiefs Rumble since they started 14 years ago. They play every Sunday at Arrowhead during the season, and the Chiefs took Matt, Alex, and other Rumble members to Super Bowl 54 in Miami 3 years ago. Friday, they head to Phoenix to play at multiple pregame events before the Super Bowl, hoping to bring a bit of the Show Me State to the biggest game of the year.
I just could remember the first time we played in 2009 with a full stadium, and it was the loudest thing I've ever heard. I couldn't hear myself play.
They want to have as much of Arrowhead and the Chiefs community brought down to Phoenix, and we're going to try to provide as much as we can of the similar game day experience for everyone who's coming out for the game.
I can tell you we never imagined when my big brother started annoying the family with his drum set 25 years ago it would lead to this. The Rumble will play several events on Saturday and Sunday, then they'll watch the Super Bowl at State Farm Stadium when the Chiefs face the Eagles.
All right, Ben, thank you so much. I bet that's something to watch. Well, the NFL Players Association named Damar Hamlin as a 2023 Allen Page Community Award winner. This is the highest award a player can receive from the association. Now, Hamlin has inspired people all over the world since he suffered cardiac arrest during a game. He says he doesn't take the opportunity to play on the NFL for granted and is working to make a difference in communities.
Giving back to my community has always been a big part of who I am. Thankful to my father who's right here behind me.
A physician close to Damar Hamlin says he'll play professional football again. Now here's what's happening right now. Rescue efforts are underway after a car crashes into a vacant building in Baltimore. Officials say a pedestrian was injured after part of the building collapsed. Firefighters are working to clean up the surrounding area. Well, people have come together tonight in D.C. to have a candlelight vigil for Syria and Turkey earthquake victims. Solidarity is shown for those affected by this tragedy. Support is also being shown for the rescue teams in their tireless efforts to save lives that might be buried under collapsed buildings and streets. Today, the death toll has surpassed 12,000 people, and those numbers are expected to rise as search and recovery efforts continue across the region. CNN's Isabel Rosales has the latest.
Beneath crumbled neighborhoods, signs of life. On top of a pile of debris, rescuers cheer and carry a child to medical help. These two children and other survivors freed from the tangle of steel and concrete. Over in northwestern Syria, where some areas are controlled by anti-government rebels, aid agencies are especially worried. It's home to more than 4 million people already relying on humanitarian help.
This country has already been suffering from the devastation of the war. And now to have those crises, this earthquake on top of the crisis, it's like the perfect storm that nobody ever wished for.
Another worry, as cold settles in, many survivors now homeless and facing freezing temperatures. At this Istanbul Aid Collection Center, organized chaos. Food, water, and other necessities stacked high. but it's not enough. Hospitals in war-torn Syria are overloaded, says UNICEF. And the widespread damage caused a temporary disruption to the United Nations' only approved crossing to deliver aid into Syria.
The fact is the Assad regime continues to block aid, and he, alongside Russia, have stopped and blocked cross-line and cross-border aid to millions of civilians that are out in the cold.
Calls are mounting for the U.S. and United Nations to do more. I'm Isabel Rosales reporting.
Well, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with the NATO Secretary General today. The pair provided an update on U.S. aid for Turkey and Syria following the earthquakes. They also addressed the Chinese spy balloon the U.S. military shot down last weekend. Now, Blinken adds the U.S. was not the only target of Chinese surveillance balloon program.
This was an irresponsible act, in response to which we acted responsibly and prudently to protect our interests. There is an ongoing operation to recover the balloon's components.
Blinken says the Chinese balloon program violated sovereignty in countries across 5 continents. Well, if you think you're a big Chiefs fan, one Columbia resident might have you beat. Coming up, see how he's getting ready for the big game. Plus, the party cannot start without the right food. We'll show you how local restaurants are preparing for the big day.
And we are watching the potential for things to potentially get a little messy tomorrow morning in extreme northern Missouri. I've just got done reviewing some of the latest data. We're going to talk about it coming up.
Well, we're getting closer to Sunday's big day. Behind me is a live look outside of State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Everything is ready there for Super Bowl Sunday, but here in Columbia, one home is also preparing for the big game. Some special decorations are drawing attention from other local area Chiefs fans. Now, KMU 8's Joshua Schumann joins us after visiting them today. Joshua.
Thanks, Evie. Cody Samuelson's Chiefs obsession started when he was in junior high, and it's only grown with this year's Super Bowl run. Chiefs fans in Columbia are gearing up for Super Bowl Sunday with flags, banners, and signs. Superfan Cody Samuelson is going above and beyond. For him, the Super Bowl can't come soon enough.
I put lights on the front of my house. I'm pretty excited. Yeah, I've got the Chiefs flags on my truck, letting everybody know who I represent, and so I am very excited, very nervous, and anxious too.
And the Kansas City Chiefs have won it.
Samuelson used the mobile app Twinkly to set up the display. It can change the color, make designs, and even change a single LED, allowing for dazzling text, something Samuelson is having fun with.
My mom was like, "In Pat we trust." Come on, Cody. I'm like, all right, it's Chiefs fans say that.
The display is on Fairview Road in Columbia. In the studio, Joshua Schumann, KMU 8 News.
Have to go see that. Well, if you're hoping to eat out on Sunday, you might want to get a seat early. Restaurants are gearing up for one of their biggest days of the year. Now, Super Bowl Sunday is the most consumed food day in America outside of Thanksgiving. With the Chiefs appearing in 3 of the past 4 Super Bowls, some restaurants say they're prepared for what it takes to host a big game. One server says it's all about having fun in the process.
A fun atmosphere here, and we have fun, and a day like the Super Bowl is going to be, it's going to be even more of that, pouring drinks, serving food, and having a good time watching, whether you're a Chiefs fan or an Eagles fan.
Studies show consumers spend an average of $85 on food Super Bowl Sunday. Matt.
Mother Nature could be up to a little bit of mischief tonight for western and northern parts of the state. As some colder air's moving in and this moisture sticks around, I think some folks could pick up some decent snow tonight. I don't think that's going to be in mid-Missouri, though I do think we could get a few flakes. Let me show you the setup here, satellite and radar. This dynamic storm system moving through parts of Mississippi right now. A tornado watch in effect, severe weather alerts in effect down there too. Showers, even a few rumbles moving through central Missouri now, getting into some of that more moderate to heavy activity with those downpours. Notice to the west of Kansas City, we're already starting to see some of these blues mixing in. That's what makes me think, or at least part of what makes me think, that there might be some mischief out towards Kansas City as we head into the morning hours tomorrow. Let me take you through it. Temperatures going to continue for us here in mid-Missouri in the 40s and upper 30s through the evening and overnight hours. That is going to keep things all as rain for us. Some moderate to heavy downpours going to continue. I think we could pick up 1/2 inch to 1 inch of rainfall. Look out towards Kansas City, though. Lots of pink, lots of blue starting to show up here. That is the potential for some snowfall to start mixing in. Notice that that moves east. Temperatures tomorrow morning in the mid-30s, so not major problems here, but where we're just a little bit cooler and some of these darker blues start to show up, talking Brunswick, even farther north, Chillicothe, Kirksville, Macon. That's where I have the concern that we could see some potentially heavy snowfall. In fact, I just looked through some of the models, and about 60% of our models have decent probabilities near Kirksville pointing to the north. So outside of our viewing area, I want to be very clear about that there's about 60% of those models that are indicating snowfall rates that could exceed 1 inch per hour. Now, all across the state, we've been in the 40s and the 50s this weekend, even the 60s over the last several days. That's great news. That means we have a warm ground temperature. Temperatures during this event stay in the 30s. That's great news. The problem is, that's all meaningless if your snow rate is high enough. And I do think northern parts of Missouri, we're not talking Columbia, Jefferson City here, we're talking areas from Macon, Chillicothe, Kirksville, over towards St. Joseph, where we could see some heftier accumulations happen. So let me show you the latest snowcast here. I think this light shading, Columbia, Mexico, Jefferson City, Tipton, Versailles, Boonville, we're just looking at some light snow mixing in. Up towards Moberly, Macon, I think there could be some elevated surfaces that get into a dusting, maybe a slushy spot or two. This area to the west of Macon, so we're talking near Marceline, pointing north towards Kirksville, I think there could be some accumulations even on non-grassy surfaces tomorrow, and I do think that's a possibility out in the Kansas City metro as well. Again, I don't expect major issues here, but I want you to be prepared. Check the MoDOT map before you head out in the morning. Far from a slam dunk, I'm much more confident about our forecast here in mid-Missouri. Winds gusting up to 34 miles per hour through the day tomorrow. 35 our temperature for tonight. 51 tomorrow. Any slushy dusting we have in central Missouri, which is unlikely, very unlikely for us, is not going to amount to much. 51 degrees, a few flurries for us here in the morning. 30s on Friday, it's cold. 40s Saturday, 50s back with us by the weekend. Rain again next week.
Thank you, Matt. Well, coming up, hear how Disney's making big changes to save money. But first, here's a look at your lottery numbers. Good luck. Disney announced today it's cutting 7,000 jobs from its global workforce. The job cuts are part of a cost-cutting effort. Now, Disney CEO Bob Iger says it's necessary to address the current challenges the company is facing. This cut represents about 3% of Disney's global workforce. The company is aiming for $5.5 billion of cost saving. Well, still to come, Patrick Mahomes is closing in on his third shot at a championship. We'll have more on the Chiefs QB's mindset as we get closer to Super Bowl 57.
Now, from the Ford Sports Desk, KOMU 8 Sports.
It is the postseason of Patrick Mahomes' ankle. The Chiefs quarterback was injured in the divisional round win over Jacksonville. Mahomes said today his ankle actually feels better than it did entering the AFC Championship game a couple of weeks ago. Now, Mahomes, of course, already has one Super Bowl ring on his finger and has never been the starter in a season that didn't end up at least in the AFC Championship game. But the former MVP is not taking the team's consistent success during his tenure for granted. Mahomes has said numerous times this year, and remember, he's also lost a Super Bowl, and he doesn't want to feel that way again. He reiterated that idea today.
I don't want to have any regrets when I step off this football field. And I understand how lucky I am to be in this organization. I understand how lucky I am to play with guys that are going to be Hall of Famers. And so when I look back at the end of my career, I don't want to look back and be like, man, I didn't give everything I have to win Super Bowls because of the great people I have around me.
One of those, Nick Bolton, coming up tomorrow on KOMU 8 News at 6 and 10. From All-SEC linebacker at Mizzou to Super Bowl captain for the Chiefs, I go one-on-one with the former Tiger linebacker as he prepares to play in the biggest game of his life. I'll share parts of that interview Thursday on KOMU 8 News at 6 and 10, and you can watch our entire conversation on this week's episode of Mizzou Extra, streaming Thursday evening and right here on KOMU 8 Saturday at 9 a.m. Mizzou football officially announced a day and time for this year's spring football game, or the black and gold game as some of us still call it. The Tigers will take Faurot Field at 11 a.m. on Saturday, March 18th. Now, that's the first weekend of the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Well, the Tigers are one step closer to making the field of 68 after Tuesday's win over South Carolina. That victory got the Tigers back over 500 in SEC play this year. It was a take-care-of-business win as much as anything for the Tigers. The Gamecocks are the worst team in the SEC, and a loss to them could have put a significant scar on Mizzou's tournament resume. Just as important, Tuesday's victory got the Tigers a confidence boost coming off of that loss last Saturday at Mississippi State.
You know, it's not easy being able to win games in February. It's not. You know, you have to be able to have a detailed level of focus about you. You have to be able to continue to do the small things.
Mizzou's next opponent, 6th-ranked Tennessee. Vols will be good and mad on Saturday in Knoxville after tonight's game with Vanderbilt. Vandy hanging around throughout the night. Tyron Lawrence with the slam, and then down to the final seconds, it's Lawrence who's going to get himself open, and at the buzzer drain the game-winning three. Down go the Vols. They host the Tigers Saturday at 5. Every year, the SEC honors one basketball legend from each program in the conference at the SEC tournament. Set aside for a moment that the Mizzou representative almost never actually played in the SEC, and that's the case again this year, as Steve Stepanovich gets the nod for the Tigers. Stepo helped lead Mizzou to 4 straight Big 8 championships in the early 80s. The big man from St. Louis nearly averaged a double-double throughout his Mizzou career. He'll be honored at next month's SEC tournament in Nashville. High school hoops, Tolton girls basketball facing Hogan Prep for the first time ever. It was Tolton senior night, and they came out firing on all cylinders. McKaylin Vita forces the turnover, a 360 to find Jillian Aholt for the bucket. Later in the quarter, Aholt dishing to a senior, Molly Gibson for the easy bucket down low. Blazer fans were loving this one on senior night at the Stable, and the Tolton girls kept the pressure on. It's going to be Aholt from downtown. She finished with 7 first-quarter points as Tolton rolls past Hogan Prep 50-22. Finally, pitchers and catchers report to spring training next week. We've got an I-70 trade today. The Cardinals picked up relief pitcher Anthony Masevich from the Royals for future cash considerations. Now, Masevich split last year with the Royals and the Mariners, going 1-2 with 27 strikeouts in 29 innings. And that is Sports at 10.
We continue to watch rain making its way through central Missouri, still watching for a little bit of snow off to our north and west mixing in. I think that's still going to be with us into the morning hours tomorrow. So if your travels take you outside of our viewing area, we're talking north of Macon or west of Sedalia, Marshall, I'd check the MoDOT map and check in with Tim tomorrow morning as you're headed out the door. Mid-30s. So that's working in our favor. 50 by the afternoon.
You guys can't hear it, but they can hear the rain just hitting the top of the building.
Yeah, certainly. So we have the umbrella.
Yes. Have a good night.